Good evening, everyone. This week's Pasha is Pasha Shin Pei Vav, and we will start from the very beginning. Parak Aleph, Pasuk Aleph, chapter 1, verse 1. Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe. Hashem spoke to Moshe, Bamidbar Sinai, in the Sinai desert, Baal Moed, in the tent of meeting, in the Mishkan, Be'echel HaChodesh HaSheni, on the first day of the second month, which, according to the way the Torah counts the months, it's the first day of the month of Iyar, that's the second month. Nisan is the first, Iyar is the second. Bashana HaShenis, in the second year, let's say some Eretz Mitzrayim, of their leaving Egypt, Lamar, saying, Su'u Esraish Kaladas B'nai Yisrael. Count the entire assembly of the children of Israel, Mishpachaisim, according to their families, Lebeis HaVaisam, according to the house of their fathers, meaning count them by tribe, which is determined by their father's family, B'mispar Shemais, by a count of names, every male to a head count. Okay, so what we have here is the mitzvah of counting the Jewish people, and at the end, after the census was taken, how many Jewish men were there from the ages of 20 to 60? No. How many men were there between the age of 20 and 60? How many?
Many.
603,550.
But this is total.
Between the ages of 20 and 60. That's the total.
That's total, not all.
Not of everyone.
Only men?
Only men between 20 and 60.
Wow.
Which means if you really want to know the number of everyone, you have to at least double that. And I've heard the number, I'm not sure the exact way it's calculated. It doesn't sound outrageous. The total number is around 3 million.
Oh, wow.
It's around 3 million. Okay. Now, the question is, what was the purpose of this census? What was the purpose of counting them? So Ramban Nachmanides, actually on the pasuk, on the verse that talks about the final count, he gives a number of reasons as to why, what was the purpose of this count. Now, the way he phrases the question is he writes, I'll read it to you from this English Art Scroll translation. But I do not understand the rationale of this commandment, why the Holy One, blessed be He, issued it. For granted, there was a need that the people be affiliated with their tribes for the purpose of encamping according to the divisions. However, as for the knowledge of the sum of the count of the people, I do not know why God commanded that they know it. So he understands, in the beginning of the Parsha, it says, Hashem says, count them according to their families. The Jewish people had to register according to their families. And we know after the first part of the Parsha deals with the number of each tribe, it talks about how the tribes encamped when they were in the desert, where there were four camps of three, each consisting of three tribes. Each camp was called by the name of one of the tribes, and there were two other ones with that tribe. And they were encamped around the Mishkan, around the tabernacle, and they were to be encamped by tribe. So the Ramban says, I understand why they need to tell us what their family lineage is to know which tribe they belong to and how to encamp. But he says, what was the purpose of knowing the number? That's his question. What was the purpose of knowing the number? Nu, what do you want to say?
What was the same as now?
Why? To know how many people to send to Congress? To know how many people to tax? To know how many people to need water and electricity?
How many people to protect your country?
Okay. So you're saying that the purpose of counting it was in order to know how many people they have in their army. Army for what? To protect them in the desert?
To protect from people who potentially fight us.
Where? In the desert?
Not what is mean desert.
While they were in the desert? Is that what you want to know? How many people they have in their army? To know how many people they have for fighting in the desert if they need to?
The desert, but there is need to remove some people in Israel.
Okay. So actually, the third answer the Ramban gives is what you just said, which is that, countries need to know how many people they have available for their armies. As of this point at their time, Moshe and the Jewish people think in a couple of days they're going to the land of Israel. Right? This is before the sin of the spies. So at this point of time, it won't be too long until they enter the land. And therefore, they need to know how many people they have for their army. Another thing the Ramban says related to that is, as we know, later on in Chumash, in the book of Bamidbar, that when the Jewish people were going to divide up the land of Israel, a portion of lands to each tribe, you need to know how many people there were per tribe, because a tribe that had a lot of people received more land. The more people you had on the tribe, the more land you received. So either for the purposes of the army or for the purposes of dividing the land, they need to know a sense. They need to know the total number. That's his third explanation. Why it's number 3 and not number 1, I'm not sure, but that's number 3. Number 1, says the Ramban, is the following. He says, perhaps it was to inform the people of God's kindness upon them. For with 70 souls their ancestors descended to Egypt, and now they are numerous like the sand of the sea, with so and so many males 20 years old, besides women and children. Meaning, the point of the number is actually to show the Jewish people how kind Hashem has been with them. Because they came down to Egypt with 70 men, pretty much. 70 men. And from the time they came down until now is how many years? 200 or so years. Okay? So in 200 or so years, they went from 70 men to 603,550 men, plus women and children, plus younger than 20 and plus older than 20. That is a very large population explosion. And that is what Moshe is showing to the Jewish people. He's showing them, look how kind Hashem has been with you, that you have become so numerous.
But this is obviously.
If you know the number, then you really then if everybody knows the number, then it really sinks in. Sometimes you're in your little area, you're not really knowing exactly everything that's going on with everyone. And now that you know the total number, now everybody knows what kind of kindness it is. Now, on the same theme, or I should say, relating to this, there is another way of explaining. The Ramban brings another example of how counting shows Hashem's kindness, which is that we also know that at the end of Bamidbar, there will be another census taken of the Jewish people, which will come after 24,000 of them die in a plague, which is talking about after they worship the idol of Pa'ar, they follow the Moabite women. There's a terrible plague that wipes out thousands and thousands of them. There too, Hashem counts them after that. Why did Hashem count them after the plague? It's actually to show them that, as much as HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem punished them and diminished them, but he still considers them important enough to count. It's a way of saying that your number means something to me, and perhaps it means your numbers will replenish, which eventually they did. So the Ramban says that Rashi brings this down. The Rashi seems to maybe have a different approach here. But there is a medrash that says that Hashem counts the Jewish people because he loves them. His counting is an expression of his love. So the Ramban is saying expression of his love means an expression of showing the kindness he has done for the Jewish people. The expression of love in counting is not the counting per se, according to Ramban, but rather what the counting means to bring out. When Hashem, he says, perhaps the counting here is to show the kindness of the fact that how numerous they became. Another place we find the kindness is because after a plague, Hashem counts them. That's a kindness, that's an encouragement to the Jewish people. So the first explanation is that the counting is an expression of Hashem's kindness to the Jewish people. Counting shows them his kindness.
But why he counted by himself? Why he forced people to count?
That's just to have, it makes it, I would assume it makes it more organized. It's something that has to be organized. And he had these 12 princes helping him organize. This wasn't going to happen through prophecy. It's not like Hashem was going to just tell him, here's the number. Want to know why it wasn't that way? I don't know. But there was an actual counting taking place, which and as we're going to see soon, the counting meant, and the Ramban says it even before this part, the counting meant that everybody came to be counted. Everybody came. Okay, that takes organization. And therefore, he had those people helping. And maybe there's a deeper reason for it.
But this is not only love, but like to make this to make people organize. It's not only just love, the feeling.
No. But the love and feeling is I'm not sure what you meant. Organized for organized for what? Organized for what?
Do something
For what? For what?
for different reason. But
What's the reason? So right now he's saying the purpose of counting, number one, is for the purpose of letting them know their numbers and the kindness that's involved in that. The next explanation he gives is the following. And another reason for the present census is that one who comes before the father of the prophets, referring to Moshe, and his brother Aaron, who is the Hashem's Holy One, the high priest, and he makes himself known to them by his name, will have through this action personal merit and life. Now, just to show you a little bit more, what the Ramban here means, the Ramban says, but the pasuk says that when they gathered everybody together, which means, and they proved their birth to their families by the house of their fathers. They had to show, what family they came from and thus which tribe they belonged to. So the Ramban says, how did they do that? He said like this. He said, okay, just 1 second. Okay. And the meaning of this is that the verse is coming to say that when Moshe commanded the people, thus by order of Hashem, the entire assembly gathered unto the Mishkan for that purpose. Okay? And then what happened was that, and so the entire assembly brought each man his shekel, because that we had already before, right? You get counted by the counting, the actual counting is by the coin that you give. And they said individually before Moshe and the tribal leaders, I so-and-so, I Arkady Abramov, right? Was born to so-and-so, was born to Yosef, from such and such family, which belongs to the tribe of Reuben or some other tribe. And Moshe will put the shekels of each and every tribe in a separate place, and with this he knew the number of the general and of the specific. So everybody's coming. They're registering. They're registering. They're coming before Moshe, and they're coming before Moshe. That's what it says. They each one of them would come, right? They would come and they said, I so and so. They identify themselves and they give their shekel. Then Moshe takes the shekels, he divides it amongst the tribes, and then he knows the number. But each individual person is coming and presenting himself. So says the Ramban, when he's explaining the reason for doing all this, he says that the purpose of, as he says, for presenting one who comes before the father of the prophets, before Moshe, before Aaron, by doing this, will have through his action personal merit and life. Why? For he thereby enters into the council of the people and in the record of the children of Israel. And so he will share in the collective merit of the multitude in their number. This, I believe, means that by being counted together, right, that brings them together into this unit. And by being part of this unit, they now share in the merit and the power and the strength of that unit. And then he says, and so too, there is a merit for all of them through the number by which they are accountable for Moshe and Aaron. For Moshe and Aaron will set their eye on them for goodness and seek divine mercy for them praying. May Hashem, the God of your forefathers, add to you and not diminish your number. And may the shekels that you give be an atonement for your souls. Meaning, by being counted and being counted in a way that they all come before Moshe and Aaron, so Moshe and Aaron basically, you have a chance to have a short audience with Moshe and Aaron. Now, this audience didn't mean that you had a whole discussion with them. But the audience meant that you appeared before them, they saw you, because of the people that they were when they saw you and they looked at you. They looked at you with, we would call with a good eye, with generosity, with kindness, and they would pray for each and every person. They'd give a bracha, a blessing to each and every person. So you have, so the way the Ramban seems to be saying, he's going to be saying there's, by being part of the second approach is that be counted, by being part of the number, that actually makes you part of this unit. You're part of this numbered unit. The number this numbering, it creates a unit of this number. You are now part of that unit, which gives you the merits of being part of that unit. And by being counted, each individual person being counted, that now gives a chance for you to receive a blessing and a prayer from Moshe and Aaron. So according,
This is not the 20 to 60 count, right?
yes, it is.
That's not everybody.
It's 20 to 60. See, the 20 to 60 number, which probably needs a little bit more explanation, is really meant to represent everybody. There is this idea that there are 600,000 neshamas of the Jewish people, which kind of means like you have your primary and you have those who come like fall under it. The 600,000 number is someone or other considered the primary unit of a number of the unit of the Jewish people, and everybody else kind of falls under that. But it's clearly only going on what the pasuk says. Those 600,000 people.
I thought that 20 to 60 did not bring shekels.
No, they did. He says they did.
Ramban says. I saw in another place that they did not.
Okay, he says they did.
Okay.
And so again, according now the Ramban, the purpose of the number, the first explanation of, he's trying to know why do we need to know the numbers for. So the first explanation is we need to know the number because the number lets us know the kindness of Hashem, of how numerous the Jewish people became such a short period of time. The numbering, right, really actually, and according to the second explanation, it almost sounds like an excuse. The counting, right, now gives the Jewish people this chance to come together in a certain way so that they become part of this unit and are able to share in the merits of that unit. And the counting becomes an excuse, so to speak, to be able to come before Moshe and Aaron and for them to be able to see you and to have a look of kindness and generosity they would have for every Jew and give you a blessing and pray for you.
It means everybody is equal.
And not do it equal. Everybody came and got a
No,
bracha. It means every individual was deserving of a blessing.
But this is important.
Yeah, definitely. But the point is that everybody got a chance, meaning, and he's going to bring an interesting medrash, that the medrash says that when Hashem told Moshe to count, right, in the medrash, he brings down, the Torah says, according, by the telling of the names, according to their head count, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem told Moshe to count the Israelites in a manner that accords honor and distinction to each and every one. Thus Hashem warned Moshe, you shall not say to the head of a family, how many men are in your family or how many sons do you have? Let's shorten the process here. We'll just kind of ask the heads of the families, who you have, what's their number? No. Rather, they shall all pass before you with awe and respect, and you will count them. So the Medrash is saying straight out, the point here was to give each individual person that feeling of importance. Like you said, everybody.
But there are some ideas, some like Egyptian people join some people from Mitzrayim.
Right. They're not in this count. You mean talking about the Erev Rav?
No,
The Egyptians that joined up?
Yeah,
They're not in this count.
they're not part of the.
They're not part of this count. That's the Ramban actually speaks that out. They're not part of this count. Now, and then the Ramban, so we have so far we have two reasons the Ramban gives, and then the third reason is, as you said, the way he brings it in, it is plausible for us to say further that this was consistent with the way a kingdom acts in preparing for war, which is what they thought they had needed to do right now, because it was going to be a few days until they enter the land of Israel, and they would have to start waging war. Okay, and because we're entering the land, they would eventually be dividing it up according to the number of each tribe, and therefore it's important to know the numbers. So that is the Ramban's approach to the purpose of the numbers. Now, another important thing to point out, now Rashi, when Rashi talks about the counting, the way Rashi says it is, Rashi says, Mitochi basan lafanav maina isam kol shah. Because they are beloved to him, Hashem counts them kol shah, which would literally mean all the time, but it means often. Kishayatzim mitzrayim manan. But when they left Egypt, Hashem counted them. Really? Where does it say that? There was a sense when were the Jewish people counted when they left Egypt? So when I read this, I was also like, when did that happen? But the answer is really is really well.
Maybe they just like a red color was the blood was a gold.
And somebody counted it?
No, maybe.
Okay. So now, but the answer is that this time the counting was done very differently. Because the way the pasuk reads, and this is a pasuk that says when they left. Right, here it is. Vayis'u b'nei, this is in Parshas Bo, when the Jewish people leave Egypt. Vayis'u b'nei Yisrael me Ramses Sukkaisa. The children of Israel traveled from Ramses to Sukkos. K'sheish mayos elef ragli hagvarim levad mitaf. Around 600,000 men, other than children. Counted. Who counted them? Hashem counted them.
This number before this.
Yep. This is when they first left Egypt.
Why we know how many before?
Hashem.
Before they really counted.
Hashem counted them. This time Hashem did the count.
What I said was
This time Hashem did it, which is an interesting point. Why couldn't do it then next time too? But we have this, counting when they first left Egypt, says Rashi. The next time they're counted is after the sin of the calf, of the golden calf. Because in Parshas Kisisa, when it talks about giving the half shekel, and it talks about giving the half shekel when they're counted, which means there was a counting going on. And Rashi says there, the counting going on there was a counting that took place after the sin of the golden calf, which Rashi there in Parshas Kisisa says was to, so to speak, know how many people are left. When Hashem lost a number of his children, a number of his flock, because of the sin of the calf, he wants to, so to speak, know how many are left. That itself is a sign of love. And then now in our parsha, he's counting them for a third time. At what point? Rashi explains, when Hashem came to rest his divine presence amongst the Jewish people with the erection of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle. The Mishkan was erected on the first day of Nisan, and the first day of Iyar he counted them. So Rashi seems to be saying that the counting, right, in some ways may have its own reason, because like he says, the counting of the golden calf was about, so to speak, Hashem showing that he cares about the Jewish people. He wants to know how many of them are left. Meaning even after the sin of the golden calf, Hashem shows them, you're still special to me. I want to know how much of a number, I want to know how many of you are left. But Rashi seems to be saying that, but the fact that he's kol shah, the fact that we have this counting so often, because as the Mefarshim point out, if there was a counting when they left Egypt, which was, right, we'll call that year one, in which month? Month of Nisan, that's when they left, right? The sin of the golden calf took place 4 months later, in the month of Tammuz. So if there were so let's say it was maybe the count. When did this count exactly happen? I don't know, but it was between Tammuz and Yom Kippur. Okay, so that's a second time within that first year. Now they're into the second year in the month of Nisan, which is shortly into the month of Iyar, which is shortly into the second year, and he's counting them a third time. Now, so Rashi's saying, all this counting in such a short period of time is meant to be a sign of love. Meant to be a sign of love. Now, again, as Rashi says, there is a reason why he counted them, especially after the second time. And each time Hashem is counting them, there's going to be a reason for doing it. But as the Maharal in his commentary on Rashi points out, the point of Rashi is that even if each one has its own reason on its own, but generally, if you're counting for the sake of just knowing the number, so you make your first count, and then after that, when things don't change that much, you just rely on the first count. You know, how many people died from the golden calf? Not that many. It wasn't that many. It wasn't 24,000 like later on. It's a couple of thousand. You know, not that's nothing, but it's not a huge number. It's not this huge change in the number. And when the Jewish people are now by the third time, it's basically the same number, right? It was around 600,000, and now we get specific, 603,550. 3,000 more than mentioned in the Torah. That's not that much. And therefore, typically, if you're just counting to know a number, and the change hasn't really been that much, you're just going to rely on the first counting. So the fact that Hashem is not relying on the first counting, but each time he keeps counting them again, that shows that the counting is not just knowing numbers. It's about showing his love to the Jewish people. Each time there's a reason for counting, he counts them because they're precious, because they're precious to him, so he wants to count them. Like something important to you, you count. But it's not just something to rely on the first counting. Hashem, each time there's a reason to count, he counts. And that is an expression of his love for the Jewish people. Now, Rashi tells us that the third time Hashem counted them, it was because when he came to rest his divine presence amongst the Jewish people, he counted them. Okay, question. As Rashi says, and Rashi's words themselves follow, on the first day of Nisan, the Mishkan was erected, and on the first day of Iyar, he counted them. Now, if he's counting them when he comes to rest his divine presence in them, then which month should they be counted in? The month in which the divine presence came. Wouldn't that make sense? The divine presence, it says, on the first of Nisan, Hashem comes to count them now when he comes to rest his Shekhinah amongst them. On the first of Nisan, the Mishkan was erected. On the first of Iyar, he counted them. When did divine presence rest in the Mishkan? When did divine presence rest in the Jewish people? When did that happen? When the Mishkan was erected, or a month later? It happened when the Mishkan was erected. On Rosh Chodesh Nisan, when the Mishkan was erected, the Torah tells us the Hashem's divine presence came and rested on the Mishkan. So if he's counting them for that, count them then. Why wait for another month? Count them in that month. Count them right there and then. Why waiting a month to count? So the Maharal and others explain what actually a halachic concept. And that is that we find in certain cases that if you're going to be considered living somewhere, you have to be living there at least for a month.
One day is not enough.
One day doesn't make you a resident. You got to be there for a month. You're a month, then now that's called you're part of the city. You're living in the city.
Okay.
So therefore, following that concept, once Hashem is a month's time living amongst the Jewish people, so to speak, that already means that this is his place. And once we know this is his place, once Hashem shows the Jewish people this is his place, he counts them again to show his love for the Jewish people. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you for listening.
Well, this idea.